You're listening to the Masonic Lite podcast. Starring Pete Ruggieri, Larry Maris, and Jason Lewis. This podcast is not endorsed by any Grand Lodge, and the ridiculous ramblings of the hosts are their own. So sit back and enjoy some Masonic conversation without pretension. And now, here's your hosts, Pete, Larry, and Jason.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here for another episode of the Masonic Lite podcast. I'm Pete Ruggieri. I'm here with Jason Lewis.
How you doing?
Larry Maris.
Hello there.
And our special guest today is your personal painter, R. Scott Hoover. Say hello, Scott.
Hello, Scott.
There we go. So, welcome back, everybody. It's been, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah, about that.
Okay. So I guess what we do here, Scott, first we generally talk about anything that we've done Masonically since our last show, which typically isn't a lot now because it's the summer. And then we go into harassing you via interview. Then we talk about random other things in the news. And then we just listen to Larry ramble about whatever Larry rambles about.
Which you listen to the show, so I know you know about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we let him go last because most of the listeners have already bailed by then. He can't really do too much damage.
That's not what our listeners say. They love it.
So, Larry, what happened with you in the past couple weeks?
Past couple weeks have been somewhat busy. We had our Goose and Gridiron, which I always seem to report on, and very successful. We had a lot of people there on Thursday. And
you sound like Donald Trump. You don't give a definitive answer. A lot of people, many people say these are the best breakfasts.
Actually, they are. And what was really nice is we had a visit from our former past master, B.J. Huss, who came in, who incidentally was in a pretty almost horrific motorcycle accident. Has been in the hospital for I'd have to say almost 2 months, going through some very extensive physical therapy, but he was able to make it and loved every minute of him. We were glad to have him. He's a good man.
Did we hear word if the doctor cleared him to drive yet?
Don't know.
I didn't hear.
No.
Yeah, I know BJ has, I know I'm not going to get the diagnosis right, but he's had some serious medical condition his whole life with bones deteriorating. I think his nickname in the Widow's Sons is Glass Man or something like that because, he's very brittle.
Yeah.
So, the accident probably had a lot harder impact on him, no pun intended, than someone else.
He said the only reason he's alive is because he had a motorcycle helmet on. Because when he actually went off the road, his bike went end over end and was actually what hit him and caused the injury. So he said the fact he had a helmet on, this is not necessarily a safety commercial, but Bobby said himself that because he's wearing his helmet, he's able to live through that.
Yeah, didn't he hit the guardrail and then go over and the bike came behind him and hit him?
And it was a fairly heavy bike, so it was bad.
So, I mean, for you guys outside of Pennsylvania is a no-helmet state. So if you choose to ride without a helmet, you're allowed to, but...
you're called an organ donor.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything else, Larry? Anything else going on?
Well, again, related to Goose and Gridiron, our pins are coming in on Monday.
Yeah, they're supposed to be here on Monday, so we're going to make a web store and tie it into Masonic Lite or maybe like a big cartel site. And, we'll sell some of them.
Yeah, definitely will.
We'll put them on the dark web.
Put them on the dark web, yep. And
I'll really sell then.
Use that to fund some of our operations and pay off some of this gear.
Another thing that happened, and I should probably say it or let one of you guys say it, we had our Tall Cedars pig roast.
That was a very good time.
It was a great time. Really was. In typical fashion, though, they had a really good speaker, and I liked it.
Let's give a few more compliments first to balance out what you're going to say.
Okay. Go ahead. Give some compliments.
The food was amazing.
Yep.
$10.
$10.
Free drinks.
I'm not going to bitch because I could have always brought something different, but the beer they had Busch beer, which is really funny.
Coors Light.
And they had Coors Light.
And Miller Lite.
But But they had some great. I had a Mountain Dew Code Red around 8:30, and then I was awake till 2 a.m.
I dropped you off, and you were.
I was stumbling.
You couldn't walk straight.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad as I get old.
From caffeine.
Yeah, I used to be able to drink a bottle of bourbon and walk straight. Now I drink one Mountain Dew, and I'm all crazy. So anyway, Larry, just tell us about the speaker. Nice retired.
He's a retired Pennsylvania state trooper. Had a lot of good stories. Very interesting. He was a good speaker. About the 40-minute mark, I think my head started to nod off. My butt cheeks were really hurting, and no one was giving him the sign to cut it down, cut it out. And he had this tendency to say, one more thing, one more story. And it just kept, one more story, one more story, one more story. I don't know how long. I was afraid to even look at my watch. But it was almost like never ending. And that's when I came to the conclusion, any guest speaker at Tall Cedars at least talks an hour. And it's not terrible. They're usually good, but it is hard to take.
Scott, you were there too, right? We were all there, right?
I wasn't there for that. I had another engagement. But I was hoping Larry would touch on, not to get away from the pig thing here too soon, because I enjoy the swine and pizza. Of course, a big Scrapple fan. Larry, about a month ago, we had help a lady move. Her father was a Mason, and she had a chance to move to out of state. And the thing that I found interesting, besides about 8 or 9 of the brothers showing up, we actually had a brother from York County, which is a little further than we generally get help from, and he found out, I think, through Facebook or some way.
Right. That's right.
And we had an all-expense-paid breakfast before this, so the man that was hosting this daughter moving party knew how to talk to his audience, and we had a great breakfast and fellowship time. And then we had only about 2 hours. We actually worked, and we had 2 vehicles loaded, and it actually went pretty quick because of the number of helpers we had.
That's right. That's right. And I'm glad you brought that up because, again, it is a great example of what Freemasonry and what Brotherhood's about. People helping people like that. To give you a little backstory, my daughter is going through a divorce, and she took on a teaching job in Massachusetts. Now, she lives in Pennsylvania, of course, close to me, and it took her some time to load up her furniture, at least 120 boxes of things. And I thought, man, this is going to be an extremely hot day, and it was. And she came, and we had it loaded up, thanks to all the brothers that showed up. Our past master from the Lamberton Lodge, can't think of John's last name,
Brackbill?
Yes, John Brackbill. Thanks, Pete. He showed up, and his idea was, I can't do a lot on Tuesdays because I'm teaching music at the high school. But he said, this is a way for me to be able to give back to the lodge and the brothers. And it was absolutely fantastic.
So I was going to say the nice thing was, too, it was more than Lamberton Lodge. That's the thing I enjoy about Freemasonry. Of course, we all love our home lodge, but it's some of the organization I belong to I really enjoy because it transcends just simply your local Blue Lodge. It's a lot of other brothers, even, like I said, from out of the county were there to help out. And he was there not just for the free breakfast, but just for the fellowship. And
Absolutely.
I think we told him about the Goose and Gridiron, the breakfast we have, and he's certainly welcome to be there. So
Absolutely.
I think that may be one of the only bright points of social media, because there's so much about social media that just is a downer and just brings out the worst in people. But, prior to Facebook, you really did not run into other Masons. I have now, between the national organizations I'm in, like Grotto, and then the RIP podcast, I know Masons from all over the world now. And I'm good friends with guys from New York and Texas, and we get together at meetings at least once or twice a year, just to hang out with each other, which would never have happened 10 years ago pre-Facebook.
Yeah, I agree.
Jason, you have anything going on?
Well, I was with you guys for pretty much all of that. I wasn't there for moving day, but Goose and Gridiron and Tall Cedars, and Tall Cedars was fun. When we got back in the car, you had said, there's something about Tall Cedars that I like, but there seems to be...
Yeah, you came up with a great term.
Oh, boy. What did I say? Oh, Grotto for grown-ups.
Yes, yeah. Tall Cedars is Grotto for grown-ups. Yeah. I mean, the guys mean well, and it's funny because they have the same kind of conversations that we have, but it's just a little bit tamer, and they go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Grotto reminds me of when I was younger, and I would go to my dad's. I grew up in my mom's house, and then I'd see my dad on the weekends. But it reminds me of going to like my dad's or going to one of my dad's friends' house, and they would sit up for hours and BS, which I enjoyed. I mean, I really had a lot of fun. But that's what that's what Tall Cedars reminds me of. But I was sitting right in front of that speaker, and about the 40-minute mark, I didn't want to be rude, but I texted Pete. I don't remember what I said, and I think, it may have been off color.
The stories were, some of the stories were sad. He was purposely trying to point out the fact that it's hard to be a police officer. It's not all coffee and donuts, and detailing like the first day he was on the job, horrible fatality accident he came upon, and but he made that point, and I think he was maybe a little. Now, I used to be in law enforcement, so it didn't really shock me, but when I still looked around the pavilion, and some people were getting kind of uncomfortable with the colorful language.
Yeah, some of the stories were pretty intense. That gentleman in particular, I forget his last name, but his first name I think was Wally. I saw him do a state degree. He's on the state police degree team, and he conferred a first degree, and he did.
Wally's his last name. Trooper is his first name.
Trooper Wally. Yeah. But he conferred a really good first degree with the state police team.
Very cool.
But that's all I got.
Only thing I have that you guys didn't have, and some of you were around for this, but we finally have made progress with our Masonic Social Club. So, for you guys out of the area and out of the state, Pennsylvania is a very, very conservative state as far as Freemasonry goes. I think the fun was officially banned by the Grand Lodge in 1920, and we still operating under that.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So, anyway, Masonry in Pennsylvania is a very serious thing. So, in our lodge building here in Lancaster, there is nowhere really for men to come together, watch a football game, hang out, just do things like that. So I started this idea of coming up with a Masonic social club where we could get a building and we could hang out. And Larry's handing me $100 right now from Scott. Thank you.
This is from Scott. 100 there.
The first 100 wasn't from Scott. The second 100 is from Scott.
The
100 from Larry.
The 20s are mine.
So
I didn't have any big bills.
So I went through LegalZoom. Shout out to LegalZoom. They're very efficient. And for $519, we are a 501c7 in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is a social club. So we don't have a building, but we have our charter. We have our bylaws. We have our officers. And now we're going to start soliciting members. So what we're doing is if you join before June 30th, 2017, it's $100, and that'll get you through for the ensuing year. And then if people join after that, they have to pay a $100 application fee and $100.
And you also become a charter member.
Right? You get to wear something fun on your hat, I guess.
Yeah.
But what we're going to try and do is have events that we normally wouldn't do with a regular Blue Lodge. Blue Lodge meetings seem to always be about eating and drinking, and then the appendant bodies seem to be about drinking and eating.
Yeah, non-alcoholic drinking.
Right. So when you get to Grotto or Shrine, the events are about drinking and then eating.
Right.
So we're going to do some things. I'm planning something right now. There's a local distillery, so we're going to get a tour of the distillery and some sampling. It might only be an hour or two, but it'd be a good time to hang out. There's another local tavern around here that has a speakeasy in the basement, just kind of like in the elusive kind of like secret knock to get in the door and just do some fun things until we get enough cash on hand to get a building.
It seems to be getting some momentum, and I missed the appointing of the officers because I was out of town, nor have I paid my $100 yet, so I got to...
That's why you're vice president.
I
think that's the reson you're vice president is because you missed the meeting.
No, I'm vice...
Only He's chaplain.
Yeah.
We made him chaplain.
So I'm going to be chaplain. So I learned well from Scott. I know the silent prayer well.
And Scott just gave $100, so everybody here is going to be in a new secret, not so secret club.
No, not so secret. Oh, yeah, one more thing before we go to break. So I double booked. So here's a nice plug for Seth Anthony. I was supposed to be rehearsing for the Noble Order of the Muscovites he's got going on here soon.
Yeah.
And my understanding is the Muscovites were a pennant body of the Odd Fellows that were very similar to Grotto back in the day. And I think that they might have been wilder than Grotto because I think they got booted. And that degree, along with like the Good Samaritan degree, went dormant for years. And now Seth Anthony, I think, renewed his Oddfellow membership so he could charter I think it's called a Kremlin. He could charter a Kremlin here in Pennsylvania. So they're doing a fundraising degree. You can become a Muscovite and you can wear a fez or a bubsy. It's all kind of Russian-themed, and there's a Russian-themed dinner up in E-Town. But tonight was rehearsal. I double-booked, so sorry, Seth, but there's your plug. I think there's 35 seats left to sign up, and you can find that at... maybe we can post a link to it on our page.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically the money's raised is going to the Pennsylvania Youth Foundation or DMLA.
I think it's gone straight. Yeah, I think it's going to DMLA.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else to throw in right now.
I was going to say the last thing that I know of was August 20th. There was a car show up there at the Mount Joy Lodge, Sherikasifia. And so that was once again another hot event. And food was involved and looking at cars, and it just was good to see brothers from other lodges. So, and it was a fundraiser, and hopefully they did well there.
I definitely saw a bunch of Hoovers there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to go take a quick break. We're going to come back and interview our guest, Scott Hoover.
Hey, Masonic Lite listeners. Thanks for tuning into the show and listening. But we want to hear from you. Do you have a great Masonic story to tell? Or would you like to be a guest? Or would you like to just call in and let us know where you're listening from or what lodge you belong to? We'd be happy to play it on an upcoming episode. In the meantime, find us at www.masoniclite.com or on Facebook at Masonic Podcasts and Twitter at Masonic Lite. Please give us a call at 315-596-2766 or 315-59-MASON.
Hey, welcome back. We're back here at Masonic Lite Podcast with our guest, R. Scott Hoover. And this is our friend Larry.
Hello there.
Larry's time to shine. Larry, go ahead and conduct your very professional Cronkite-esque interview.
No, that's Harley. Scott, we talked. Well, first off, let me say something. Our guest 2 weeks ago was the lovely Jonna Hoover. Fantastic guest. And I said to you the other day, I said something about the fact that she was great. But don't worry, if you're not as good as she was, the pressure's not on. So, Anyway, one of the things that has always fascinated me about you is ever since I have been a member of this lodge, every time I come in, you greet me. You greet everybody.
With a hug sometimes.
Sometimes with a hug.
Always with a hug.
Yes. And
To the left.
I noticed that because as a matter of friendship and brotherhood there, that really goes beyond the norm. And also, I also know you're also a member of various other bodies. Some of them more recent in the past. I think you've been in, how long have you been in Blue Lodge?
Since I was 21, I asked my father what I had to do to be a Mason. He said, "You just did it. I'll get you a petition." At that point, I said, "Dad, what do you do as a Mason?" I didn't know what it was. At that time, he was a police officer, so I knew everything he did was totally above board, but because of his character, not just because of his profession. I said, what do you do as a Mason? He said, "We sit around and eat ice cream." So sure enough, after I got my first degree up here in the 4th floor in the Masonic Center where we're recording this, we came down to the 1st floor and we had ice cream. And I said, "Dad, now we do more than eat ice cream." So he hasn't lied to me, but he never gave me the full story.
So you told me you were 21. What are you,
Correct.
about 35 now?
I made it to 62 so far.
So that's been 31 years?
Or if we did the math correctly, it's closer to 41.
41 years?
From 20 to 60.
Oh, okay.
6 and 2.
Larry's from Tower City. They didn't really stress math there.
If I continue on this track, I might get my 50-year pin. So it's
I
know some fellows have joined too late to get that, but I was able to join early enough to get that.
Don't get me started on that. I think we should be given 40-year pins. Okay, so basically, you're also a member of the Lodge of Perfection, Valley of Lancaster.
Correct.
You're a member of the Consistory 32nd degree out of the Valley of Harrisburg.
Correct.
Member of Grotto.
Yes.
member of Order of the Eastern Star.
Correct.
What else am I forgetting?
I also belong to Tall Cedars, High 12, and one of my favorite, the Goose and Gridiron. And I guess we did mention Grotto. And I think it was really neat with me being involved with the Blue Lodge. My children were exposed to and found out about like D. Malay and Job's Daughter. So my 4 sons joined D. Malay. And as we mentioned earlier, about to meet people from other areas. So we knew literally people from throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And then with Job's Daughters, the same thing was true. And then both the daughters have since joined Eastern Star. And the boys have all joined Lamberton Lodge, so I'm proud of that. And I was very careful that I want to make sure they joined because they wanted to, not because their father, forced them to, or they're there as members because they want to be there, not because of what Dad's coerced them into.
Yeah,
coerced.
I don't think you coerced. I don't think knowing all of them practically. I don't think you coerced them in anything. They are their own minds.
True.
One of the things that you haven't brought up, because I guess you really don't want to pat your own shoulder, but you received last year
Larry, what?
Don't worry, it's symbolic.
Pat yourself on the back, I think is what you meant.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You received about a year ago, one of the most prestigious awards in Freemasonry, the Masonic Service Award. And let me tell you, you got to be pretty sharp, pretty good, and pretty dedicated to get that, because not a whole lot of people get it.
Is it the MSA? Is that Meritorious Service Award? I think it's Meritorious Service Award.
Well, ask the guy that has it.
Yeah. What is it?
I just call it the MSA.
Right.
I think it's Meritorious Service Award.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah, you've got to be nominated for it and go through a committee, and they decide whether or not you get it. And I know of a couple Master Masons who have been officers and so forth, hoping they'd get it for the past 10 years, and they're not getting it. So,
well, on that, I'll humbly say that being involved in the Blue Lodge as long as I have been, I really told Sandy, my wife, that there is no award for the wives of Master Masons. And, of course, with her cooking and serving and being fairly well known throughout the First Masonic District because of her catering, I said, this is really their way of honoring her is by giving me the MSA. So I said, she really gets the service award.
Yeah, we discussed that at breakfast a couple of times as to how you got that award. We totally agree with you.
The Meritorious Sandy Award.
The Sandy Hoover Award.
Okay, so tell me some of the other things. You come from a long line of Masons. Grandfather, I believe?
My father. The interesting thing was of course, my father-in-law. So it's sort of interesting that, I understand back in the Civil War days, about 1 in 4 men were Masons. It's not nearly that high, I believe, today. And so it's sort of unusual that 2 people met and got married that both fathers were Master Masons, and they both pretty much became Masons because of men they saw around them that they respected. And that my father-in-law was through being in the Army Air Corps in World War II and saw men that he respected. And after he got out of the service, he joined he's a past master from Quarryville. He's since passed on. But my father, through being a policeman, saw other men around him that he really respected, and he became a Mason because of them. And then, fortunately, with the lifestyle he lived, other men looked up to him and became Masons because of him. So it's quite an honor, to live your life the way you do in service and so forth. And so that's my Masonic lineage.
I know we're probably repeating this because John covered it really well. Tell me about your number of sons who are Mason. Your daughters are in Eastern Star along with your wife. So give us a...
The four sons joined Lamberton Lodge, and the 2 daughters joined Eastern Star in Quarryville, Robert Fulton chapter. And I also joined Robert Fulton chapter, and I'm currently their, they call it a sentinel, which we would call a tiler. And I am also the tiler for Lodge Perfection. And the nice thing about both those positions means I don't need to pay dues. So I still get to enjoy the thing, and I keep the costs fairly low. And while we're talking about keeping the costs low, I was doing painting for a brother, and he was a tremendous grotto enthusiast, and he asked me to join. And I said I would join if you would pay my initiation and my first year's dues, and Pete Ruggieri was able to do that. So he didn't realize how expensive that paint job was going to be. So after that, I got into Grotto and really enjoyed the fellowship. And what I like about Grotto is being a non-drinker, I think it was mentioned before in the podcast, you certainly can have a great time at Grotto and not be drinking. And I enjoy seeing brothers from different lodges there. And Grotto is a really just fun time and good organization. And once again, it has a good charity that it supports. So with the different things, which a lot of the Masonic organizations, of course, do.
I think you got a good point there. When you go to Grotto, if you're a non-drinker, watching the guys that are drinking, it's a show in itself.
True.
It really, really is.
I've been more than once been the designated driver to get somebody home to Quarryville. I won't mention Chris Gibson by name because we all know and love that dear brother.
9-time worshipful master.
Yes.
Has it been 9? Has it really been 9?
I don't know. It must seem like it to him.
He said 5.
I was going to say at least 5.
Yep.
And once again, that shows service. It's a small lodge, and to keep it going and to do what he's doing, he's stepped up to the plate many times to do that.
Yeah, we're going to have Chris on at some point because not only that, and he's currently is he thrice potent master?
Your boy's passed now.
Just last.
Yeah, and he's all besides this. I mean, he's also very big in the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
Yeah, he goes away for a week at a time to like Boy Scout camp, and
he's also the one that started the Masonic invasion that we're familiar with here in the 1st Masonic District. So I don't want to take away.
Yeah, go ahead and explain that a little bit. I don't want to steal Larry's thunder, but it's a good topic to go on.
And we all enjoy it. And once again, it's getting outside of your home lodge. It's nice to go visit other lodges. What Chris has done is there's a couple things he has set up as a prerequisite. It's always for an extra meeting, which unfortunately usually aren't as well attended. So we'll go visit unbeknownst. That's a good Lancaster County word. Unbeknownst to the lodge we're invading, we'll put an email out, and so we'll get anywhere from 10 to 20. In fact, when we invaded Lamberton Lodge, I think there was 30 or 40 there that night. And we have a meal ahead of time, so we have that fellowship time, and then we'll go to the lodge. And after the lodge opens, we'll actually have a rap at the outer door, and all these Masons will come in, and we will witness this person or persons getting their degree work. And so it's a tremendous boost to, we've invaded Ephrata Lodge, we've invaded Lamberton Lodge, we've invaded different...
One of my hometown growing up is Kennett Square.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that you guys actually went across county lines and invaded Kennett Lodge.
Right.
And that was, they were totally surprised because not being from this district, they didn't even know what it was.
And in fact, it's so dynamic, and I'm not going to be giving anything away because this won't be broadcast until after Monday night, hopefully. I can just say that they're going to do something a little bit different, and we can mention that, or somebody here can mention in the next podcast what they're actually doing Monday night. It's actually to visit a brother that's currently in the hospital. And so we're going to meet for a meal, and we're going to go visit that brother in the hospital and just really show our support in that way. And that, once again, is what Freemasonry is about. We go to the meetings. We certainly enjoy the ritual. There's certainly a lot of knowledge and information there. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. That's just where Freemasonry begins. And really, that's the doormat, and we go from there.
Wow. Well, thank you. I guess we'll let Larry... Larry's, it's charades time. Larry's making a sign like he's breaking a stick.
Larry needs a pretzel.
I really need to go to the men's room.
All right, so we're going to go get Larry a Gatorade bottle, and we'll be right back. Brothers, are you having trouble keeping up with your honeydew list? Are you overwhelmed with your job, no free time, and then you still have to go to lodge? If you need anything painted, R. Scott Hoover's the man, but it's kind of mysterious, just like anything in the Masons. You can't really just contact him directly. You have to contact Masonic Lite, and we'll pass that on. But I guess the good thing is if we actually book the business, then we'll get 10% and we can keep the lights on. So... remember, R. Scott Hoover, your personal painter. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back, Larry. I'm hoping your bladder feels a little gladder. And yeah, and we're back with R. Scott Hoover, your personal painter, professional Freemason, and our guest this week. And Larry, go ahead. You have some more to ask Mr. Scott.
Yeah, Scott, I do. One of the things that... I guess we've all talked about at one point or another, not in a negative or a bad way, okay? Because your service to our lodge has been nothing short of exemplary. And I just want you to know everybody appreciates it.
It's only negative if you're one of the officers under him, and then you find out that you have to jump a couple spots.
Yeah. And which the question was, why haven't you been to the East yet?
When I started through the chairs, which I really enjoyed, starting out, we saw the lower chairs, the sword chairs in Pennsylvania. You'll be your pursuivant, your junior and senior master of ceremonies. I wanted to spend a whole year there because some guys were jumping ahead, but I wanted to stay there and really enjoy being junior deacon, senior deacon in these other positions because they are important. And one of my favorite positions in the lodge is being a friend and guide. We often forget the friend part, but it's really interesting to bring a new candidate in. And I am answering your question, Larry. So I was working my way up through, and unfortunately at that time I was actually working for Armstrong and working shift work. And what that would require would mean I'd be more than likely missing at least 1 out of 3 meetings. And obviously we realize that God and family and your work come before Freemasonry. But if you're going to be an officer, you pretty much want to make sure that you've made your schedule, that you can be there for those meetings, especially as a presiding officer, as the worshipful master is. Now, obviously, death of your mother or something like that, we'll let you off for. But so I'm going through, and I really held myself back at that point. And then after that, going through the line and making up as far as I think I've been thrice past senior warden now, which is not really a title. I'm currently, and the nice thing was my son is Jason is senior warden and does excellent work, as the men at this table can tell you because they've seen his work in our lodge, and also he's actually on the district degree team. With his background and his voice and demeanor, really does a good job impressing the candidate with the lessons being taught in that degree. And so it was really my honor when I was senior warden, and we actually flip-flopped stations last year. I was senior warden, he was junior warden. I got to install him as senior warden. That was quite an honor. And so what I've been doing really ever since, I'm junior warden this year for the maybe 4th time. I don't know. We lost count on that one. But I'm just trying to fill in the chairs and allow people, the lodge to keep going. And it's quite a responsibility to be in that master's chair, and I just never was able to take that final step and final plunge. But I certainly respect that office, and I'm not sure if I'm worthy of that title. That's quite an honor.
Well, just to let our listeners know, I've never gone that route either. I served as a chaplain once in South Carolina. That was the end of it.
Well, Larry, you can't remember where your car keys are, let alone a degree.
That is, in fact, the truth.
But Scott knows the degrees. He's prompted me before.
He does.
He's one of the guys on the sideline that knows every single word.
Not only does he know every single word, he knows every single position in the lodge. Scott can sit in any one of those chairs and do a masterful job.
Well, hopefully that's a benefit to the master when we show up on a night.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And they're looking for a job, and all the different chairs. Now, certainly the master gets the grand salute, but all those positions are important, and they all have a lesson to teach and so forth. And
what's your favorite chair to sit in?
Like I said, I think really friend and guide. And because when you're in there and you have that candidate really at a disadvantage when he doesn't know what's going on, and if we hoodwink or blindfold him, and I say everything we do is based upon the Bible, there's nothing we're going to do here to humiliate you. You're not joining a college fraternity, you're joining a men's fraternity. And I said, if we were doing something stupid, I wouldn't be here on a Thursday night. There's other things I could be doing. And I said, I'll be your friend and guide. I'll be with you the entire time. And really just try to put them at ease and let them go through with that. But I certainly enjoy the other chairs. But I really think if I had to do one job, I'd be friend and guide.
Yeah, I think my favorite one is junior warden. Just because you're kind of like the first person of authority that candidate gets to deal with. Mm-hmm. And you come in and you're the first person to put some questions to him. And you're the one that kind of, when he agreed, when the junior warden thinks you're okay enough to come in, then you're allowed to come in for the rest of the degree.
And the other thing I enjoy being is the unofficial chaplain at our Goose and Gridiron. And I thought of that when Jason is going to be the chaplain for this other body, which I'm a charter member of now, since Pete actually has the U.S. currency in his hands.
Don't give me I'm leaving here to go to a bar, so I might have to give this money back to Larry.
Well, we do have witnesses that I did, in fact, join. But the nice thing is the only thing we really do at Goose and Gridiron, our Thursday morning breakfast, is we get together and we just have the time of fellowship. But I stand up, and when I do stand up, most of the men do get quiet because they realize it's one of the few times we're serious and solemn. And I say we are men of faith. That's part of our oath and obligation. And we just pause and I lead us in silent prayer. And when I'm not there, I'm so pleased that Jason has decided to continue that same tradition. So,
well, it's my favorite prayer to say. It's very easy.
The silent one.
I mentioned that. Maybe I mentioned that last week. I was at the AMD, Alley Masonic Degrees, and sitting to my left is our former guest, Reverend Dr. Christopher Rocky, who has a dual doctorate degree. His doctorate in theology, and I don't know what his other doctorate is, education maybe, but somehow or other, the way our order goes, I'm chaplain for AMD, and it was my turn to give the prayer, and I did Scott's favorite prayer, the moment of silence. And when people are looking at me with like this look of disapproval, I said, "Come on, the guy beside me's got a double doctorate in theology. Like, I know I'm not going to do that great. I'm embarrassed. So this is just." So then they laughed. Yeah.
Scott, I got a question for you. I know, we mentioned this last week with your daughter, but you and your wife cook and steward and a lot of cater the dinners for everybody here. And one of the things that happens a lot here is, whether it be 476 or my lodge, Lodge 43, a lot of our candidates or entered apprentice or fellow craft masons come in and help serve dinners with you.
And that's really helpful. And they even Effort Lodge, where we cater, they do that up there also. And we get to know the new members. But the important thing is, besides having extra help doing dishes, which I really enjoy, is my bottom motive. But they get to have fellowship and time with, and they help prepare ahead of time. But we do try to make sure they can sit down and eat with their brothers even before they're actually members of that lodge. And then, of course, we go upstairs. The members of that lodge will go upstairs for their meeting, and they stay down here. We still have a time of fellowship there. And I have a chance to unofficially mentor. And they really get to see that Freemasonry is about serving. And, it might be serving your brothers, at the table. It might be things like that. So it's good to have that situation available to them.
We didn't do that when I was master, and I can honestly say that it's wonderful that you do that. Because when candidates would get into lodge, our extra meetings are generally not that well attended. It's the chair officers, and there may be, if we have 5 people on the sidelines, it's amazing. Usually somebody from the sidelines gets sucked in and has to fill in a chair and not be in a tuxedo. So so this is a way that they can see that there's actually more than 5 members of this group, because I mean, I'd have to look at the secretary books, but just from when I go to meetings, I know attendance is up since we started having a meal before the meeting. It really gives everybody a reason. We have a lot of bachelors now that, hey, this might be the only chance for the month that we get a home-cooked meal.
And I know Larry's going to be there in September because he found out tonight it's homemade chicken pot pie.
Shut up. Are you serious?
Serious.
Where was I? Oh, I was in the bathroom before we started.
So for you non-Lancastrians, chicken pot pie is not what you buy in the freezer at your grocery store. It's basically like chicken and dumplings, but instead of dumplings, it's big, flat, doughy noodles.
We talked about this last podcast. That and Scrapple. I don't know if we talked about Scrapple, but that seems to be an underlying theme of our show.
We had a pot pie degree.
Pot pie and Scrapple. Could you make a Scrapple pot pie?
There actually, if you go to my website, one of my Facebook pages, Scrapple is the new bacon.
Right.
I did post an article. There's a place in Ocean City that's making a Scrapple pie. So if you think about like a mincemeat pie or like a shoe fly pie, it's Scrapple in the middle. And they're telling how it's their best-selling pie because at first people buy it because it's a novelty, and then once they get it home and cook it, like, wow, it was actually pretty good. Shout out for Scrapple, the other gray meat.
So I know we have international listeners, so this is your invitation to chicken pot pie night. So what the second Tuesday or the first Tuesday of the month for Lamberton?
First Tuesday.
First Tuesday.
And we would, we'll have the meal, and it's served family style, so it's as much as you can eat. And just a shout out to Josh Palmer and Noel Wenrick, which I know really enjoy it. We have it at 43. They were allowed to come visit, of course. and enjoy the same pot pie they get there. In fact, we do so much pot pie, and it's so labor intense. Like Cindy really starts out literally with a bag of flour. We do have back in the kitchen right now, we actually have a dough roller, so it makes it a little bit easier on me. To it's the real deal. It's homemade.
We ought to put a challenge out there to see who can eat the most pot pie.
Oh, my
so,
God.
Josh Palmer, if you're listening to this, you're being challenged.
Do you think you can take him, Jason?
Oh, I got him. I got this.
Okay.
I don't know. I won't eat all day. We'll see.
I've seen Josh eat.
I seen a dear brother up at Grotto go back for the third prime rib, and he did finish all three, but he did claim it's probably more than he should have eaten. But I can attest that he did have three.
I don't know who you're talking about. It was up there. I said it can't go to waste. I guess I got to do it.
All right. Let's see. Let's take a quick little break. We're going to come back with some Masonic news and just some of Larry's ramblings. We'll be back.
This is Jacob Young from Lamberton Lodge 476 in Lancaster, PA, and you are listening to the Masonic Lite podcast.
Good news, everyone!
Masonic Lite News. News not fit to print.
All right, so in the news, again, it's summer break for us, so there's not a lot to talk about, but I got a couple things that we shared on our Facebook page. One of the most important pieces of news right now is Louisiana. So Louisiana is suffering some flooding. They're saying that it's some of the worst flooding since Hurricane Sandy, and the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite, I believe, has already pledged $1 million in assistance down there, and they're doing some fundraising. So if you log on to the Northern Masonic jurisdiction on their Facebook page or online, and I'm sure the Southern jurisdiction is following suit as well, but that's probably one of the biggest pieces of news right now. Do you guys have anything to add? Have you seen anything? Do we know any brothers down there that have been affected, or?
I don't personally. I mean, well, I guess I do. Good friend in Grotto, Victor Mann. He's originally from Louisiana, and he and his wife Angelique, they did post something the other day about some friends of theirs. So I have a friend of a friend. So I know my wife made a nice little gesture, sent like $30 or something to a GoFundMe or something. But yeah, so there's a lot of people having a hard time down there, and it's not getting anywhere near the attention that Katrina did, but I guess we just need to keep talking about it so people pay more attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any Masonic friends down there, but I do have a few from the music industry, my day job, and we got the all safe. Facebook has the mark yourself safe during some sort of disaster, and they're okay. And he said, my basement is flooding. I'm going to see Alice Cooper. Nothing I can do. So. Another piece of interesting news is the video that we shared that Maryland is showing either on social media or on TV, a pretty heavy recruiting piece. In Pennsylvania for a long time we could not recruit that. Ask one to be one was kind of the motto. In recent years they've loosened that up, but I know a lot of Pennsylvania Masons are still hesitant to solicit. But if you go to our Facebook page, Masonic Lite, or www.masoniclite.com, you can see this video, and it's a great video, but it is interesting.
I thought it was a little creepy.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched the video yet, it's showing I like the premise. I just would if I was the director, if I was M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong, I would have. I mean, they had guys walking in their civilian clothes, so maybe as a plumber, a police officer, a teacher, whatever their uniform is, and then they're walking into the lodge. And the cool effect was, like, as they crossed through the doorway, they all started wearing tuxedos and Masonic regalia, and they were all walking in like military formation, with angled right turns and things like that. So, I mean, I like the general aspect, but it looked kind of like, to me, if I wasn't a Freemason, I got like a heavy cult vibe from that. Like, we're going to transform you from this to this. it would have been cooler if they were just walking in casually, not in step, and then when they came through the other door, they were just talking with friends, like.
I think it's important, though, to have that a little bit of an air of mystique. I mean, what we do is, I know we don't join out of idle curiosity, but at the same time, I mean, I think there does need to be a little bit of we can't give them all the secrets without joining.
I shared one on Facebook probably 10 minutes before I drove here from the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
Yeah, they have a good one.
And that was probably the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah, theirs is excellent.
Is it on the page now?
It's on Masonic Lite's Facebook page. So check that out if you haven't seen it. I think it's from the Grand.
That's classy.
Yeah.
There was a comment by a non-Mason, a mutual friend on Facebook, and he said, being a non-Mason, this is a little creepy. And I think that I had said the only thing that you're missing out behind those doors is a lot of pancakes. And
and pot pie.
And of course, pot pie. This should be the Masonic pot pie podcast. The only other thing that
Masonic podcast. Well, that's got a different connotation.
And Enket's our sponsor for tonight, Sandy's Pot Pie.
There you go. The only other thing I have is just a shout out to some of the other podcasters out there that we listen to, and there's a really interesting episode that just launched. Our friend and hopefully a guest here soon when we finally figure out how to do a Skype call, because we're technologically disadvantaged here. But brought to light, Jack Aquilina, he's got a co-masonry brother and a female brother. I believe they call themselves brother regardless. Very interesting podcast. And the Masonic Roundtable has had a past worshipful master who's a woman, and also she came to the Academy of Masonic Knowledge. But both of those episodes or that live event were very awkward. And I don't know if it's because Victoria, Australia is a little bit different, but his podcast with this particular woman on is very, very interesting. So if you want to hear about co-masonry, I would check it out. I mean, the guard is not up in this particular one, but I think it's very interesting. What are your guys' thoughts on the whole co-masonry?
I'm fine with it. I think we were on another level. A couple of our brothers were having a discussion about the Boy Scouts, and saying, how the Boy Scouts could really, because there's so many women that help out with scouting. If the Boy Scouts were to go co-ed and whatever. And I heard some different arguments from various Dean brothers on both sides. But, I think the main sentiment was, if they want to have an organization like that, they should have an organization like that. So if co-masonry wants to have men and women, they can exist, and we can exist separately. I don't think we should change, and I don't think we should allow women, not because, and I said this before about social organizations like the Elks. Like, I was a member of the Elks for a long time, which is co-ed now. But one of the things is, I think men can act a lot different and not in a good way when women are around. Guys, they puff out their chests a little further. They act a little bit more, more manly. And, I just think it's not the women's fault. It's our problem. I think we act different when women are around. And, what do you think, Larry?
Well, what gets me is whenever we talk about this, one of the things that goes through my head is how in the world, if we would accept women into the lodge, which I don't think we ever will, but how in the world, if we did, how do we conduct a third degree?
Attendance will be up.
Well, I mean, I just think it would have to be different. They would probably change.
And I've not heard that question asked. And Jack, I apologize. I had to cut your podcast short so I could start recording this one. I was listening to it while we were setting up. But if you asked that question, I'd be curious to see what they do. But it is interesting.
Part of our dialogue in the third degree, though, is or as far as decency will permit. So I'm sure that is already written in. That level of
decency would be different.
Correct.
Well, then I'm not even interested.
Okay.
Okay, Larry.
Oh, man. Something I've been thinking about, and Scott and I were talking about this a little bit, and traveling on the road, I see, so many Masonic symbols on the back of cars. So especially when I travel for work. And, if I'm in my car, I tend to fly ahead of them and pass and get in front, be like, hey, look, I'm a Mason too. And, listening to, co-Masonry and then also, something that I just came across for the first time, we had, there may or may not have been a petition that came through in the area with a recommender that was from an irregular clandestine lodge. And, and I honestly believe that brother who signed had no idea that he belonged to a lodge that wasn't recognized by the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. And now, a woman Mason is a little bit different, because I think that if a woman Mason came up to us and said, hey, I'm a brother too, we would know right away that is a little odd for Pennsylvania. But, I think that I'm going to be a lot more careful, speaking to brothers. I mean, I was out in California and I saw a brother with a Freemason shirt on and we started chatting. And now in hindsight, it's like, man, how do you really determine if somebody's, irregular or not?
I have a gentleman that used to frequent one of the same taverns as me that was a very learned Freemason. And we talk all the time. And then as I got a little bit, past being a newbie, I realized that he was the master of a lodge that I never heard of before. So he was, so there's a lodge in Lancaster County, I believe, called Solomon's Lodge, something. They're not, I think it's an all-black lodge, but it's not affiliated with Prince Hall. I don't know anything much more about that, but yeah, he can't come to our meetings. I can't go to his, but I would sit at the bar and have good conversations with him. I shook his hand, but, I treated him as I would a brother, but, didn't really go much further than that.
Yeah, I'm sure that being part of what we would call clandestine or irregular doesn't mean that they're bad people by any means. I think that particular, Prince Hall, when they restructured however many years ago, there was a number of lodges that didn't want to, and I don't want to say they went rogue, but it seems that they do have some other irregular lodges out there, non-recognized lodges. But it's pretty interesting. That's all I got for the news.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, another break. Okay. We're going to take a break for Larry, but we're going to come back in 3 seconds when Jason edits this, and we're going to come right back. The Red Serpent by Larry Maris. One man's obsession to avenge the death of his wife uncovers a long-hidden, ancient blueprint to perfect the world for future generations. Visit www.larrymaris.com. You can purchase this book anywhere except CVS.
Also, special thanks to our advertisers, especially Masonic Scarves. Guys, I'll tell you what, if you need custom-made scarves over the finest quality knitting, the finest colors available, give us a call at Masonic Scarves. Call us, email us, do whatever you can to get your order in there. It takes 4 weeks to get them. We can put your lodge number on there. We can do anything for you to make these things really great. Give us a yell. Contact us by email, call us on the phone, however you want to do it, and get your order in. Remember, I have a feeling this is going to be a very cold winter.
All right, 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and we're back. All right, so just like we had for your daughter, we do Masonic Would You Rather. We've been editing it to not just be Would You Rather questions, but I do have a couple fun questions for you, Scott.
Good.
So you and I shared a ride to New York.
Correct.
So I sell guitars for a living. I had to go to New York, and I put a post on Facebook, and I said if anybody would like to come along. And, Scott, you are a man of faith, and you can quote Masonic ritual and probably the Bible equally as well. And I have a potty mouth. and a really bad one. And so that ride was a lot of fun, but it was a challenge. So one of my questions for you for Would You Rather, not really a Would You Rather question, but who out of the two lodges, actually let's just do me and Pete, between Pete and I, who has the biggest potty mouth?
I don't know. I think you're both pretty good when you're around me. I hope it's a good thing, not a stifling thing. And there's a difference between good and stifling. So hopefully we bring the best out in each other.
Nice. Safe answer.
Eat shit.
There it is. We'll have to beep that out.
The Foskata for our Greek brothers.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, if you listened to the bloopers, the last reel, your child may have sworn, and I may have beeped it out.
Thank you for doing that.
Please don't
Protecting
play
the family name.
All right, so keeping in the theme of chicken pot pie, we asked your daughter, who serves a lot of us as well, but we need to know it from the guy who makes it. So who can eat the most chicken pot pie, Lodge 43 or 476?
I would, and in spite of my love for Lamberton, as you know, 43 does put a hurting on the pot pie.
Nice, good. And last question. Tell us about your most embarrassing Masonic moment.
I think it was for another brother. We had the one-day class right here in this building, and he was a large fellow, and we had trouble getting the proper pants to fit him. And I came downstairs, and Sandy was getting the lunch ready. I said, I need safety pins. I need this. I need that. She goes, why? I said, this guy's pants aren't staying up. And so what he was actually doing, besides being with all the other brothers in the one-day class, trying to hold your pants up is hard to do. And so because of that embarrassing time, Sandy actually went out and purchased, of course she's reimbursed, but the nurse's garb, or like the surgical scrubs. In fact, we had them upstairs in I think the 3 or 4X, so that we can have the brothers properly covered for our ritualistic secret.
Now, this is why you have wise past masters like myself. Couldn't you just let him wear his own pants and maybe, adjusted the legs accordingly?
Hey, we didn't think of that.
Yeah, okay, that's why I make the big bucks.
That's right.
And that's why Masons will not ever rule the world.
That's right.
We can't even get our pants on.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness. So is that it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel your pain. I'm a big guy. I'm pushing 400 pounds, and I lost my drawers during the 3rd degree. I feel so bad for the pursuant because
I made a comment online today. In Masonic terms, I'm a medium. And I was 296 pounds this morning, so I'm considered a medium in Pennsylvania Freemasonry. But I'm working down to get to a small, which would be a 2XL. So.
Oh, nice. John often calls me when we're having breakfast. She calls me once a day, and just a daddy-daughter talk. And she says, "Oh, that's right. You're at the Take Over the World breakfast, meeting. We're at at the Goose and Gridiron." But she goes, "I know you guys can never overtake the world because you can't decide if you want ham salad or chicken salad. How can you make more informed decisions?"
So. Our waitress needed us to rearrange the table, and we were like, "Oh God, Pete is going to walk in any moment, and then he's going to walk right back out." Biggest pet peeve. She told us to, Pete.
She told us.
You know what? I that's why my attendance is very poor.
We had 15 people there?
Yes.
We did. It was a good one.
It was huge.
It was
I mean, the room really couldn't accommodate
It was
everyone.
good.
Yeah, it was good. I had missed the last 2 weeks. So
15 people in one empty chair.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you have 15 people. 12 of them are hard of hearing. It's just the loud. You might as well just go to a rock concert and sit in front of the speaker.
I even had money to give you, and you didn't show.
I think we need to have a Goose and Gridiron podcast, and we should broadcast from there so our listeners can see how ridiculous it gets. Between batteries dying on hearing aids,
It would sound like this. Nobody would have any idea what's going on.
and there's always somebody's hearing aid squealing.
For God's sake, it'd be a dumpster fire. Larry, what do you have? Let's wrap this.
Let's close
this thing up. What do you got?
Basically, want to thank Scott Hoover for having the courage to show up tonight. Thank you. Great guest.
I was invited to Goose and Gridiron, so I was sort of hoodwinked at that point.
And also, again, my voice is giving out, and I apologize for that.
God.
Our special thanks to Jason Hoover
Jason Hoover. There is a Jason Hoover.
There is a
just
Jason
not
Hoover.
here.
Yeah, Jason's not here tonight.
Scott and I
Sorry
hug,
about that.
We hug a lot, but we're not
Father,
blood,
son.
yeah, we're not blood related.
We're just brothers.
Oh, Lord. Well, anyways, thanks to Jason
Glad I could help.
for serving over and above the call of duty. I mean, you're not only helping with the guests, you're not only helping run the show, you're also doing all the hard work, putting the show together, taking it home, and knowing you'll probably work on this till about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Maybe.
You've done it before. That's why I said
Yeah,
that.
I have, yes.
Yes, you have. All right, here we go. Down the line. Thanks again to our podcast reviewer. Can't stand the noise. To our joke coordinator, evaluator, Odessa Goodwin. And to our director, Rocco Ruggieri. Again, our news director, Jason Lewis. Our foreign correspondents who are missing in action. But I'll mention their names, not a worthy. And I'm a blather. Somewhere in Afghanistan.
It's like a
we
tall
hope.
Cedars. It's like a tall Cedar speaker.
Exactly. Also, special thanks to the Lancaster Masonic Center, who continues to let us record in their beautiful downtown facilities. Again, we don't know if they really know we're here, but
Jason,
we
well,
all
actually,
have keys.
Yeah, we all have keys, so.
Yeah.
And finally, I usually end the night on a high note, but one of the things I want to do is a little bit more of a serious note. Tonight, I want to give thanks to my wife, Carol, who does a lot of editing for us, for me particularly.
Did she help you with that copy that you just read?
No. As a matter of fact, when she hears this, she's going to flip. But anyway, thanks to her. She's a great gal. We kid a lot on the show and say things that, when she hears it, unfortunately, how could you say that? And anyway, we're just kidding. A lot of the show is scripted, so we say things like that. But anyway, thanks, Carol.
What did you do wrong that you were issuing this public apology?
It's not a public apology. I'm just thanking her for all the help that she
It
gives
reminds
us.
me, one time I bought flowers at a florist. I'm walking back to my car, and there was like this elderly man walking in, and he just looks at me and goes, "What'd you do wrong?"
Yeah, true story.
Now, I expect we've got a guest here whose wife does a tremendous amount. Give her a shout out, please.
Oh, well, she really is very supportive of me personally, but also I think she's probably the best known woman outside of course, our district deputy's wife, but just because she's getting around the different lodges and cooks for the guys. And of course, as you know, we're very simple men. We just need a little attention, a little bit of food, and we're happy. And Sandy certainly gives attention out there in the dining room and feeds all the guys. So she's meeting all the qualifications there.
Jason, what's your wife's interest in Freemasonry?
0.
Yeah, that's about. My wife and I have a deal. I drag her to about 2 or 3 Masonic events per year, and then in turn she drags me to 2 or 3 church events per year.
And you leave each other alone.
So that's it. We each have our thing.
I'll give her credit because she tolerates a lot of the things that I do. And in the last 2 years, I've done almost everything. And even though she doesn't have an interest, I mean, she's really supportive of like the podcast. She knew that I really wanted to get on the board of directors, and she was supportive of that. And while I'm out doing this, she's at home. I think the 2 of my kids are switching their bedrooms tonight. So,
and she did come out to James Buchanan. We're out there at the.
And she comes
She
out.
almost ran us over, so I don't know if that was a positive or negative.
Right,
but
yeah.
she claimed she didn't see us.
She came. She comes to the picnics and she comes to the events and open installations. So she's supportive, but she'll never sign a petition for some
I
sort
will
of group.
say, on behalf of Pete, he's got a beautiful, lovely wife, and she does a lot, and she lets him do the things she does. I mean, she's just great. She really is. If he won't thank her, I will.
I'll thank her, but meanwhile, she's at the beach right now. She's down in Rehoboth with a bunch of her college roommates. So hopefully she'll come back.
When you did the Penn Live Scrapple interview, when I wrote up with you, I was like, so what did, I don't know if you remember this, but I asked you, I said, what does your wife think about all your shenanigans? And you said, oh, she loves it. And then I had an opportunity to sit down with her, and you weren't there, and I said, so what do you think about all the Pete shenanigans? She's like, I love it. So I think you got a good one.
We balance out really well. And, she makes me a little calmer. I make her a little crazier. We kind of meet in the middle at home. But, when we get out out of the building, I'm an extrovert. But honestly, when I'm home, I don't answer the phone. I don't like people. Like, yeah, I'm so happy just to be there with my wife and my dogs, and the rest of the world can go to hell. But when I come out around Masons, I put my happy face on, and I have some good brotherly love.
Didn't mean to be this serious in closing.
Man,
and I think with the banjo music and the roosters and the sheep in the background, that might make it a little more interesting. Basically, I also, too, want to thank our Grand Lodge coordinator, Jack Snafu Lutz. Great guy.
What was that?
Jack Snafu Lutz.
Oh, he's married. That's a hyphenated name.
And also, too, one of the things I want to do is basically end the night with a thought. Give it some thought. It's a little bit deep, but it means a lot. Okay, here we go. The unknown is a state of mind that exists somewhere. That's all I have. This is Larry Maris. Thanks for listening.
If anybody's still here, please call the authorities.
Thank God it's over. This is Jason. That was Pete.
Scott Hoover, just honored to be here with my brothers.
Have a great night, and thanks for listening.
Oh, Lord, my God. Oh, Lord, my God. Was there no help for the Larry son?
What the hell was that?